Welcome to Learn English Speaking. Let's talk stories. Here we bring you amazing stories to improve your English fluency. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more exciting lessons. Let's learn together.
Chapter 1. Exiled from London.
Dear Will, do you remember me? I am Frank Osbaldistone, and I want to narrate the adventurous story of my early life. It was the year 1714, and I was about 20. My father ordered me to come back from Bordeaux, France, where I worked, and to return to London. My father was the founder of the business house Osbaldistone and Tresham, with offices in Crane Alley, London. He was a tall man, full of energy, with dark, penetrating eyes. He had a fiery spirit, full of initiative and acute powers of analysis. He never used a word in vain, and he never got really angry. But when he was displeased, he spoke in a brusque manner. My father wanted me to become his successor in the family business, but I preferred to study literature and write poems. He tried everything to convince me to change my mind, and eventually threatened,
"I have a brother in Northumberland, and he too has children, Frank. I will ask one of your cousins to take your place in the business if you do not obey me."
Showing little respect for his wishes, I replied, "You can do as you please. The business is yours. I will never sell my liberty for gold." As I was very obstinate, in the end my father decided to send me to his brother at Osbaldistone Hall in the north of England. The following morning I took the road to York, mounted on a good horse and with 60 guineas in my pocket. I was sad, but I did not want to go back to London. I wanted to show my father that I was adult enough to decide for myself, and that I was truly convinced of my decision. The journey was monotonous, but sometimes I had the opportunity to speak to different travellers, parsons, farmers, officers. We spoke of many different matters: taxes, markets, wars, and outlaws. One man that I met, Mr. Morris, was particularly afraid of outlaws. He had a heavy portmanteau, which he never abandoned for a moment. He never mentioned his destination. He trusted nobody, and he was afraid of me too. In those days, travellers used to break their journey on Sundays. They rested their horses and had dinner together at the local inn, where the innkeeper offered them a meal. On this particular Sunday, I stopped at Darlington at the Black Bear, with my new companion, the strange Mr. Morris. A Scotsman, Mr. Campbell, joined us for dinner. It was the first time I had met a Scotsman, and I looked at him with curiosity, because I had many prejudices against the inhabitants of Scotland. When I was a child, my nurse told me terrible stories about them, of blood and revenge. I considered the Scottish people dishonest, avaricious, and hostile to Englishmen. Mr. Campbell was a tall, athletic man who spoke to other people with superiority. Strangely, my timorous companion, Mr. Morris, asked if he could travel north with him, but Mr. Campbell refused.
"Your companion talks too much," he said. "It is unsafe to say where you are going in these troubled times."
Chapter 2. The Osbaldistones.
The following morning, I left the company to go westward, where my uncle lived in Osbaldistone Hall. The landscape was romantic and picturesque, and appealed to my love of nature. I went past rivers and little solitary valleys until I arrived at Osbaldistone Hall. The house was in a glen between two mountains, surrounded by a large wood of oaks. I was on a hill above Osbaldistone Hall when I heard the sound of dogs and horses. It was a fox hunt. I saw some men, dressed in green and red uniforms, riding after the fox, and I thought, here are my cousins. Suddenly, I had a vision. A beautiful young lady appeared in front of me. Her face was uncommonly fine and animated by the hunt. She had long, black hair down to her shoulders. She was wearing riding clothes, like a man, and rode a splendid black horse. Just then, the sound of a horn announced the end of the chase. A young man came triumphantly towards us. He was carrying the fox's tail in his hand. The young woman spoke to him. Then she turned to me and said,
Excuse me, did you meet a young man on the road, a Mr. Osbaldistone?
I am Francis Osbaldistone, I answered.
Ah, I'm pleased to meet you, Mr. Osbaldistone. This young man is Thorncliffe Osbaldistone, your cousin, and I am Diana Vernon,
she continued. Diana accompanied me to Osbaldistone Hall, where my uncle, Sir Hildebrand Osbaldistone, welcomed me. He was a man of about 60, dressed in hunting clothes. Once he had been a soldier and a knight under King James II. After the king's deposition, he retired to his lands in the countryside, where he was lord.
These are your cousins, Francis,
he told me.
Percy, Thorny, John, Dick, Wilfred, and Rashleigh. The girl you met earlier is Di Vernon, Diana, my dead wife's niece. She lives here too. Now, shall we have dinner together?
My cousins were all tall, well-built and good-humoured, with the exception of Rashleigh. He was different from the others, short, thin, lame, and his expression was cruel. However, these disadvantages were partly compensated for by his very soft, sweet voice and his great ability in putting words together. Diana Vernon was sitting next to me at dinner and gave me some information about my cousins.
Rashleigh,
she said,
wanted to become a priest in the Roman Catholic Church, but his deformity prevented him from entering the seminary.
She also revealed that my father had chosen Rashleigh to take my place in his company. After dinner, my cousins started to drink and laugh immoderately. As my foreign education had given me a dislike for intemperance, I preferred to be alone and decided to go for a walk in the garden. On one of the little paths, I met a gardener. He touched his Scottish bonnet with an air of respect.
Good evening, my lord,
he said.
I am Andrew Fairservice. For 24 years I have served the Osbaldistones.
He was very talkative. He told me that he was a Presbyterian, and when he heard that I was an English dissenter, he took out a tobacco box and offered me a little. I asked him about Di Vernon.
Oh, the young mistress, the lassie Vernon, he answered. She is a Catholic, and what is worse, she's a Jacobite.
Chapter 3. Accused of robbery.
I went to bed that night, thinking about the strange Osbaldistone family, my father, Rashleigh, and Di Vernon. When I woke up, I heard the horn announcing that the fox hunt was beginning again. In the courtyard, where men, dogs, and horses were in full preparation, I met Di Vernon. We left with the rest of the hunting party, but after a few miles, we were alone. Di guided me to the top of a hill and stopped her horse under some trees. She indicated some mountains on the far horizon. She said that they were in Scotland, and that if necessary, my horse could take me there in 2 hours. I was surprised. I had no desire to go to Scotland. What should I do in Scotland? I asked.
Provide for your safety,
She replied.
Didn't you travel here with a man, a Mr. Morris?
The girl asked me then. Well, yes. I travelled with a strange little man who was always worried about his portmanteau, I answered slowly.
Someone stole that bag, Frank,
Explained Di. You do not think I am a thief? I replied angrily.
Mr. Morris is an agent for the London government.
She continued.
He was carrying important documents and money for the English soldiers in the north. You are accused of robbery and of treason, Frank Osbaldistone.
So, I am a traitor too! I exclaimed angrily. She saw I was angry and tried to console me.
Around here, many important people are in favour of James II and against the Hanoverians,
She said.
Your crime is considered the crime of a gentleman and a king's man.
But I want to refute this terrible accusation. Who is examining my case? I demanded.
Judge Inglewood. He told my uncle to show you the road to Scotland,
Replied Di. Then I must see him and tell him the truth. Diana insisted on accompanying me. When we arrived, we were surprised to meet Rashleigh coming out of Judge Inglewood's house. The judge was having lunch when we entered. Another man was with him at the table. It was Mr. Morris, my timorous travelling companion. He said that one of the robbers had mentioned the name of Osbaldistone. But that is not a good reason to accuse me, I replied. At that moment, the servant announced the arrival of another gentleman, and I was surprised to see Mr. Campbell, the other man I had met on my journey north. He explained to Judge Inglewood that he had been with Mr. Morris when the bandits attacked him.
Why didn't you help Mr. Morris, then?
Asked the judge.
Mr. Morris is strong enough to defend himself,
He replied coldly.
I am a man of peace. I do not want to have trouble with the law, but of one thing I am sure. Mr. Osbaldistone was not one of the bandits who stole the bag.
At that point, Mr. Morris retracted his accusations against me, and the judge declared I was innocent. Soon after, Mr. Morris left the house with Campbell. Di Vernon and I rode back to Osbaldistone Hall. The girl started to tell me something of her life. She had many troubles, she said. I tried to learn more, but she replied mysteriously,
I cannot reveal my secrets.
At Osbaldistone Hall, Di ordered dinner for us in the library. The ancient, dark library was full of books, very untidy and neglected. On one wall was a portrait of Di's grandfather, Lord Vernon, with the Vernon motto above it. He had been loyal to the kings of the Stuart dynasty, she said, and had shared the misfortunes of Charles I. The Vernon family, once important, was now ruined. During our meal, Rashleigh entered. I must thank you for calling Mr. Campbell. His defence saved me, I said. I was curious and wanted to learn more about the connection between Rashleigh and Campbell, so we continued to talk until Diana went to bed.
Chapter 4. New Troubles.
The following day was Sunday, a dull day at Osbaldistone Hall. We all attended the formal religious service in the morning, and, when it was over, Sir Hildebrand congratulated me.
Ha ha! So you did not go to prison after all, my lad. You were lucky this time. But do not tempt fate again.
His words embarrassed and irritated me. On my honour, sir, I replied. I am innocent. I was not involved in that detestable crime. I was saved from more embarrassment by the arrival of Rashleigh. He was leaving soon for London and wanted to know more about my father, his relations with me, and about the business. I, however, was more curious to find out about Di Vernon.
We were close friends once, and I was her tutor,
he said.
Then my studies took me far from her. She must now decide between life in a convent or a convenient marriage. She is engaged to Thorncliffe, my brother, but I am convinced that I am better qualified for her.
These words hurt me, and that evening, when I met Di, I was cold and rude to her. At dinner, I drank too much, and so I talked too much, quarrelled, and laughed immoderately. Rapidly, I lost all control. It seemed to me that Rashleigh was making insinuations about my feelings for Di, and, furious with him, I slapped his face. My cousins took me by force to my room and locked the door. I slept badly, and the next morning I knew I must apologize for my behaviour. My cousins accepted my excuses. Only Rashleigh showed his resentment. I also apologized to Diana for my discourtesy to her. She insisted on knowing what had provoked my bad humour, and, embarrassed, I told her. She answered that I had to be careful when speaking to Rashleigh. I decided then that I had to inform my father about my cousin's true character, and wrote him a letter. It was after this that I realized how much Miss Vernon and the secrets around her occupied my thoughts. I was falling in love. Rashleigh left the hall for London, and after his departure, I started to help Di with her studies. I discovered that while she had had an extremely good education, she was totally ignorant of real life beyond the hall, and knew nothing of accepted feminine behaviour. One day, Andrew Fairservice, the gardener, informed me that news of the robbery incriminating me was circulating in London. I was anxious and decided to send another letter to my father to explain, and rode into town to post it. At the post office, I found a letter from Owen, my father's clerk, waiting for me. He said that he was worried because he had had no recent news from me. He did not mention my previous message concerning Rashleigh, and so I became suspicious. Does someone intercept my letters at Osbaldistone Hall? I wondered. That evening, when I was in the garden, I saw a light at the library window. This was not unusual, because Diana often read there alone. But I was surprised when I observed the shadows of two people inside. After that, I became jealous and started to watch Miss Vernon's looks and actions. I was desperate to know who visited her in the library. The next time I saw the light there again, I ran into the library, but I found Diana alone. However, there was a man's glove on the table. Diana refused to give me any explanation. With an air of authority, she told me I should spend my time in a better way, instead of spying on her. Then she gave me a letter which had arrived for me. "Gracious heaven!" I cried. "My folly and disobedience have ruined my father. This letter says that Rashleigh has gone to Scotland. During my father's absence in Holland, Rashleigh left London, taking documents and large sums of money from the company. Mr. Owen is now in Scotland too, in Glasgow, trying to discover where Rashleigh is hiding." I decided I had to go to Scotland immediately to help my father's clerk. Before I left, Diana gave me a sealed packet without an address and ordered me to open it only in an emergency.
Chapter 5. Reunion with a Friend.
I asked Andrew Fairservice to accompany me into Scotland because I did not know the country. We met at 3 in the morning because we didn't want to wake the Osbaldistone family. On a Saturday evening, after a long ride, we arrived in Glasgow, the principal town in the west of Scotland. I wanted to start looking for Owen immediately, but Andrew said,
"You cannot do anything until the church service is over."
So I decided to go to the Cathedral of Glasgow, a solid and massive example of Gothic architecture. While all the people were silent and listening to the sermon, a voice from behind me whispered distinctly in my ear,
"You are in danger in this city. At 12, precisely."
I turned round, but there was no one there. I spent the rest of the day at the inn, reflecting on what I should do. In the end, I decided to go to the appointment on the bridge. I waited on the bridge in the dark. I was very apprehensive. What was going to happen? Then the clock struck midnight. And suddenly a stranger appeared near me and said,
"Mr. Osbaldistone, follow me."
I hesitated and replied, "Can't you give me your information here?"
"You must receive it from your eyes, not from my tongue,"
he said.
"You must follow me, or remain in ignorance."
So I obeyed, and was surprised when the man led me to Glasgow prison. The prison guardian, a Highlander called Dougal, seemed happy to see my companion. He took us upstairs to a cell where a prisoner was sitting dejected in the corner. It was Mr. Owen. He recognized me and exclaimed,
"What? You are here too? Oh, Mr. Frank, your company is ruined, and now you're in a Scottish prison. God help us."
I assured him that I was not a prisoner and asked him to explain what had happened. What was he doing in Glasgow prison? He told me that my father had 2 correspondents for his business in Scotland, the house of McVitie McFinn and Company, and the baillie, Mr. Nicol Jarvie. They transacted a great deal of business for the London firm, and Owen had gone to see them when he arrived in the city.
"I immediately contacted McVitie and McFinn,"
said Owen.
"They had always professed themselves obliged and devoted to Mr. Osbaldistone, so I openly revealed the present difficulties of the house caused by the absence of your father and the disappearance of Rashleigh. I asked for counsel and financial assistance regarding the next payments, but when they discovered they had large credits with Osbaldistone and Tresham, they refused to help me. They had me arrested and sent to prison as a debtor instead."
Just then we were interrupted by a loud knocking on the prison door. A few minutes later, Baillie Jarvie himself came in and spoke to Owen, asking to see his papers. He examined them with great attention, then said,
"You owe money to several people in Glasgow, but you cannot pay your debts if you're in prison. I will act as your guarantor, and they will let you go free."
Baillie Jarvie took the lamp and scrutinized the other people in the room.
"Ah? Eh? Oh, my conscience, it's impossible, and yet... No. You robber, you devil that you are. Can this be you, Robin?"
exclaimed the baillie.
"That is so,"
was my guide's laconic answer. Mr. Jarvie also wanted to know who I was, and then asked me,
"Young man, how will you find the £5,000 to pay your father's bills in 3 days?"
I didn't know what to say. Then suddenly I remembered Diana's packet. I opened the seal, and a letter dropped onto the floor at Mr. Jarvie's feet. After examining the name on the envelope, he gave it to Robin. I realized then that my mysterious guide was in fact Mr. Campbell himself. I recognized his deep voice, his severe face, and his Scottish accent. Mr. Campbell read the letter, then instructed Owen to remain in Glasgow. He told me Bailey Jarvie and I should go to his Highland home in the Glens. The next day I went to the Baileys' home for lunch and found Owen there. The honest man was depressed after his stay in the prison, but Mr. Jarvie's kind and friendly interest in my father's affairs consoled him. I asked the Bailey to tell me something about Robert Campbell.
He is a distant cousin of mine. Many people have been cruel to him. He is a Highland cattle merchant that wears the tartan when he's in the hills, and trousers when he's in Glasgow,
explained the magistrate. Then he started to examine some business documents with Owen. As I could not help them, Mr. Jarvie suggested going out for a walk. I could return later for lunch.
Chapter 6. An Unexpected Encounter.
After I left Mr. Jarvie's house, I directed my steps to the college grounds. While I was walking, my attention was attracted by 3 men who appeared at the end of the garden. I looked again and recognized Rashleigh with Mr. Morris and Mr. McVitie. I did not want to be seen, so I hid behind some trees and came out only when the men separated. I followed Rashleigh and took his arm to stop him. I was determined to demand reparation for the wrongs done to my father. "I am glad to meet you at last," were my first words.
"Oh, I am easily found by my friends, and more easily still by my enemies,"
replied Rashleigh coolly.
"Which of the two are you, Mr. Francis?"
"I will be an enemy if you do not immediately render justice to your benefactor, my father," I said.
"Why should I justify my actions to a young gentleman who has no inclination for business matters? Go, young man, and amuse yourself in the world of your poetical imagination," replied
my cousin insolently. "This is no answer for the wrongs done to my father. You must come with me to the magistrate and give me full satisfaction," I exclaimed angrily.
"You insulted me once before, remember?"
hissed Rashleigh.
"Your insolence merits personal punishment. Now, follow me to a place where we cannot be interrupted."
I followed him, watching him attentively because I knew that he was treacherous. In fact, I had no time to take off my cloak and take out my sword before he was on me. He attacked me without warning, and I only saved my life by springing back. Rashleigh fought furiously. After the first impulse of passion, I reflected that Rashleigh was my cousin, the son of my uncle, and decided to try and disarm him only. But I soon realized that I had met my match. The combat seemed destined to have a tragic end. I slipped. Rashleigh's sword passed through my waistcoat, grazed my ribs, and ran through my coat behind. I thought that I was fatally wounded and assaulted my opponent, ready now to kill him. At that moment, a man stepped between us and separated us, exclaiming,
"What? The sons of 2 brothers doing this? I will break your heads if you continue."
I looked up in surprise. The speaker was Mr. Campbell.
"Are you hurt, lad?"
he asked me. Then, turning to Rashleigh,
"Do you think men will trust their lives and fortunes to one who goes around quarrelling like a drunk man?"
After a few more quiet words, he sent Rashleigh away, and again invited me to be prudent and to stay at home. Then he disappeared and left me to reflect upon the singular events of the morning. I tried to adjust my dress and to hide the blood which was flowing down my right side. On the way to Mr. Jarvie's house, I stopped at a little shop, an apothecary's, where a lively, elderly man treated my wound and laughed at the excuse which I gave him for it.
"Your young blood, young blood,"
he repeated.
What made you so late?
Asked Mr. Jarvie when I returned. I made my apologies, but did not tell him what had happened. Soon we were seated at table, where the baillie entertained me with great hospitality and good humour.
Chapter 7. The Journey Begins.
We ended the meal with some brandy punch.
The limes
Mr. Jarvie assured us proudly.
come from my little farm overseas. I made the liquor myself.
This led to a conversation between Mr. Owen and our host about the possibility, which the government had recently given to Scottish towns, to trade with the British colonies in America and the West Indies. I was silent, and, when the baillie questioned me, I related the events of the morning and anxiously asked him, "What should I do to help my father and satisfy my own honour?"
I think that Robin will help you, if he can. He is a good-hearted man,
replied the baillie. "Can I consider Mr. Campbell an honest man?" I continued. "Can I go to the appointment in the Glens safely and believe in a man who fears justice?" Mr. Jarvie explained that in the Highlands there was no law and no magistrates. The country was savage and poor, and people often became bandits. Robin Campbell, once an honest and active man of noble lineage, became an outlaw known as Rob Roy when his creditors took everything he had. Here, Mr. Jarvie's face became very sad.
Rob was away on business,
He said,
and when he came home, he found desolation where he had left plenty. He looked east, west, south, north, and he saw no hope, no shelter.
The bailie's voice showed his affection and sympathy for Campbell's misfortunes.
Robin put on his bonnet, took his big sword, and collected a band of bluebonnets. He and his men started to protect the lands and cattle of the southern farmers from robbers in exchange for money.
"Oh, a very singular contract of insurance. The robbers who threaten the southern farmers are those same Highlanders,"
exclaimed Owen at this point. This form of blackmail was against the law, and Rob risked capture and death if he was found in Glasgow.
He is a sort of Robin Hood,
Concluded the baillie.
I am convinced that he robbed Morris with the help of Rashleigh to accelerate the Jacobite rebellion against King George. He was certainly an agent between our Highland chiefs and the gentlemen in the north of England.
The conversation went on, and gradually we came to the opinion that I should leave at once for the Glens and meet Rob Roy there. The next morning at 5 o'clock, we started our journey. Mr. Owen remained in Glasgow, and Andrew came with us. We travelled all day, going northeast from Glasgow, first across a marshy, barren land, then through a wild and desolate area with dark blue mountains visible in the distance. I began to appreciate Mr. Jarvie. He had an observant mind, and he knew the ancient history of the area. He was a good Scotsman that loved the traditions of his land, but he also understood the importance of the union with England for the future prosperity of his town and country. We had lunch at noon at a most miserable alehouse, and then continued our journey quickly because we wanted to reach the Clachan of Aberfoyle before night fell. During the last 3 miles, Mr. Jarvie began to give Andrew his instructions.
Keep your tongue in your mouth, and don't say a word, good or bad, to anyone in the Clachan.
He told him sharply.
And remember, no blasting about your master's name, or mine. I have many things of more importance to speak about,
Was Andrew's indignant reply.